the questions though. This is really great. Anything else we can answer before we move forward?
Yeah. How does financing work for?
That is something we'll get to. I promise that.
We'll
I
touch
promise
on
that.
that
We're
very
just getting
soon.
started. Okay. With that, I'll hand it.
One quick question.
Sure.
Yeah, having talked to DBI about ADUs myself, it's not always a very cut and dry. Some questions are always cut and dry. For example, if you have 2 units or you have a unit with an illegal unit and you're adding an ADU, it kind of throws you the three unit realm where you might have to sprinkler the building,
Sure.
or provide secondary means of egress. How do you guys make those kind of determinations that are kind of gray? And even when you talk to DBI, their ADU people don't even know the answer to
Yeah.
planning. And so, how do you guys in the business of doing this come to determination?
Our goal is you're going to give us your address, for example, and our goal is to make as many conversations and calls. We also have very good relationships with the planning departments of the neighborhoods that we work with. And you almost have to get creative with who you're speaking to. Sometimes fire departments you're going to have to be speaking to, planning divisions, building divisions. I do promise that they are trying to make it simpler, but we have seen experiences with like sprinkler systems that might need to be installed, or if there's a fire hydrant that's too close by. Again, it is subjective, but if you were to give us an address, and any design build firm that really kind of knows their stuff, they'd be able to kind of help you walk through that aspect. We also do, and I will talk about this later, incorporate a site survey. In a site survey, we would have a representative come to your location and really be able to answer all of those questions so that you're not starting your project paying for a unit and realizing in the middle of it, oh, you know, this is not as planned or it's more expensive than I thought.
Sure. So, sir.
Good questions. So, I'm not really a permitting guy, but are you an end-to-end solution?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So our architect, Ahmad Mozab, our chief design officer, he's had decades of experience working, especially in the Bay Area. So if you have any property here, I encourage you to speak to him afterwards.
But you'll pull the permits and everything?
Yes, we'll run everything for you. Last question before we move forward.
So, what are the typical setbacks requirements on most properties?
I can answer that.
And
So-
also, you're going to answer that?
Yes, I can answer that.
Okay,
So
cool. And then, also, what is your typical construction style? Is it slab on grade, or is it?
that's something we'll get to in these next slides, I promise. But in terms of setbacks, you typically see at least a 5 foot. But that's actually one of the laws that's changing as well. The minimum that is now 4.
Okay. But then you got to have the fire.
Yeah. So there's some exceptions.
Yeah. As you can all see, you know, a lot of these answers that we're giving depend on where you exactly live. And in the Bay Area in San Francisco, some of these laws are very subjective based on exactly what your zoning is. But we like to give blanket information just so you understand the overview. But yeah, with that, I'll hand it off to Saad.
Thank you, Ryan. But yeah. Again, feel free to ask questions throughout this. I'm going to be going into some of the design build aspects of it, the steps, et cetera, et cetera. But first, I want to start off by explaining the difference between traditional construction and prefab construction. Now, two are both very good options. I think it very much so depends on what your goals are with your project. So with traditional construction, you begin with your site work and then bring all the materials on place, and it's all occurring on the physical site. This does generally mean it's going to be a longer time to build compared to prefab construction. But you will get a higher level of customization. You work with an architect or an interior designer, you can kind of get every square inch the exact way that you're looking for if you choose a traditional path. This does mean, however, it's going to be a little bit more labor intensive, and you're going to have that labor on site for a longer period of time. So that could lead to increase in costs, but it depends on the project. And they are slightly more flexible with change orders, although prefab can't accommodate change orders as well. Now with prefab, the way that works is that in an off-site facility, that's where most of the building is going to exist. And while that's occurring, the site work is being done as well. So your site work, your foundation, really preparing the site is occurring, and your wall panels, your windows, your doors, everything, the plumbing is all kind of being prepared in a different facility. Then it gets put onto a flatbed and shipped to the site and then placed into the backyard or into the property. And there's kind of different ways to place them depending on the style of prefab you choose, which I will be getting into later. And because of this, it's going to be about 30 to 50% faster in regards to time to build.
How about cost?
That depends. Cost, we've seen some reductions. It really depends on your area. If your area is really hitting the labor shortage and it's a very expensive to have people there per hour. So having a little or a smaller time frame for on-site assembly can be very beneficial price-wise. However, maybe if you're building in, let's say, Texas, and there's a lot of space and the labor itself isn't quite expensive, then you might want to go a traditional route. But in the Bay Area and Los Angeles, we've seen that these price points are relatively the same, and maybe depends on the project.
Including their micropad guys, what they're seeing with their projects? Are you looking at them as a part of the same prefab?
Yeah, from my understanding, they are kind of in that prefab space as well, and shipping it to the locations. Prefab could require a crane. There's situations where that's not the case, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Oh, and I also just want to get a perception out of the way. I know some people might hear modular and prefab and assume, oh, isn't that like the mobile homes or the tiny homes on wheels? I just want to say that there are very clear distinctions between manufactured homes and modular homes. Manufactured are kind of like the mobile homes that you think of. They kind of depreciate like a car in regards to them being an asset. Whereas modular and prefab, you can have beautiful structures like this or this. So when it comes to quality and precision, modular and prefab is just as important and strong in that regard. So here are the general steps when you're building an ADU. First, you need to start off, can I do it? Am I eligible in my specific jurisdiction? And within that, there is a site survey, which I'll be explaining very soon. Next is your design phase, and you submit it for permitting and review with the city. Then you're going to be doing your site work, if you're doing prefab at the same time that you're building the unit. And then you're going to be installing, getting it ready for a certificate of occupancy so that you can get your renter in, or your parents, or whoever you're housing in your accessory dwelling unit. Okay, for the eligibility, the first step is you can kind of do an off-site eligibility, so you're not having to pay too much to see what you can do. Here's some really good online resources that I use all the time. Build.symbium.com is a computational law company that sells software to municipalities. And what you can do on their site is type in your address and see if you're eligible. Now, this is not for every single city in California. Their software is continuing to improve and add more cities, but they do have quite a few. It's just a great place to take a look and begin. So again, that's build.symbium.com. Houseable is another company that does something similar. They also kind of provide resources and will help you through different phases of the process, maybe connect you to some different professionals that work on ADUs as well. And then also to speak to your local building department. I would say that's a must, even if you use different resources. Go on their website. You could just Google San Francisco ADU regulations, San Mateo ADU regulations. And San Jose and San Mateo have really phenomenal websites designed to help homeowners build accessory dwelling units. Tomi will be using the San Mateo one when he's doing his financing breakdown and the rental income breakdown as well. So you can take a look at it there. And this is kind of some of the things that you can check: the size, bedroom, bath numbers, setbacks, height, floor area ratio, and the impact fees. On to the on-site eligibility. So this is something that we highly, highly recommend that you do. Make sure before you break ground on your project that you've done a site survey. What this will do is really explain to you what's going to happen, how much it's going to cost, how will these specific aspects work in my project. And I'll break them down, like your site property plan and fixture, some of the code requirements and permitting, if there's any exceptions that you brought up earlier that you need to take into account. This can be understood and responded to in the site survey. Critical issues such as slope and visibility from your neighbors, on-site observations such as the existing space conditions, finishes, how close it is to transit, and height. And what's very important is your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. If you have an ADU, it must have a kitchen or a kitchenette and a bathroom. It must have those things. So you're going to need plumbing, you're going to need electrical, and you're also going to need mechanical. You're going to need all three. So in your site survey, you're going to have a good understanding of how you're going to be doing that and how those utilities can connect. Yes?
What about HVAC?
I think HVAC also gets included in your site survey, although I do understand it might be kind of up to the homeowner depending on what system they want. Yeah. Any other questions?
Are there any concerns about solar now, or is it something you would speak to, like the phase stuff you talked about, with what's happening with power
Yes.
now? With PG&E basically trying to hold us all up, and that's what that is.
Yep.
I'm a Chicago guy, no shakedown.
Yeah, so there are some new laws about solar panels up in 2020 for new residential construction. That's going to depend because there are going to be exceptions based on whether your home even is a viable place to have solar. So we're waiting to see what those regulations come in 2020.
I mean, it's such an insulting experience, you'd have to be an idiot not to get it. Like seriously, you can get one of the companies that finance it.
Yep.
Like you get a fool to do it, and especially if you're looking for something for a family member who may have health issues that require it. And just right now, after what just happened, and until we get things fixed in the government levels, you just be a fool not to have it.
Absolutely.
Because it actually adds revenue back to your actual investment. So
That's
from
true.
5 to 10%, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, we're seeing California in general move to a lot of sustainable strategies, and that'll only continue in regards to that trajectory. Any other questions on this slide? Yeah.
Are they requiring anything about electrical charging for cars now?
That's a great question. Off the top of my head, I don't think an ADU would impact the electrical charging. And from what I understand, they're not. In some cities, this might be the case, but in most, they're not making you add parking. You could have a half a mile from a transit center. As long as you're half a mile from public transportation, you won't be needed to require parking. Okay, so going into the design phase, there are 3 primary questions that we like to kind of ask any homeowner when they're looking to build an ADU. What's the purpose? What's your goal out of this? Are you looking at for rental income? Because if that's the case, maybe adding a second bedroom is a good idea because it can improve that rental income property. It could kind of, if it's something for student housing, maybe you don't need the highest level of finishes for your unit. I'm a student, so I understand that struggle. Or I was a student quite recently. And also, it's good to understand what are the lines of sight from your neighbors. If you have neighbors with a 2-story unit right next door, and then you have very long windows peeking into someone's bedroom, it's probably not the right move. So definitely kind of understand what your situation's looking like and how you can maybe have a different type of window fixture or make it small in certain areas and large where you'd like to have them. A third question, which was brought up earlier, is does it need to match the primary residence? As of right now, that kind of concept is a little vague because we've seen it in a lot of different city planning departments, and sometimes they're a lot more flexible, sometimes they're a little bit more stringent. So again, please speak to your local building department for that understanding. Speaking purely on behalf of Shiloh, we use exterior hardy panels and some that can even match the look of stucco. So if you're looking for something specific color-wise to match your primary residence, Shiloh can absolutely accommodate that goal.
Yeah, I mean, once you have to also check with your community organization,